Now, the Lord Jehovah spoke with me. I want to share this tremendous conversation that the Lord Most High, the Lord of hosts, Jehovah Yahweh, the tremendous and dreadful God of Israel, God the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, He spoke with me this night, the entire night until about 6:55 in the morning, the entire night. But in this conversation, the Lord lifted me up. He lifted me up above the earth, and we were at a place where I could see the earth, and so it was quite between here and heaven. So I could see the earth and everything, the goings on. And then God the Father, who was on my right-hand side, his voice was coming from my right-hand side, at the same location, he began to show me his true dreadful witnesses at the altar on the earth. So I was seeing myself on the earth at the altar of the Lord, ministering at the altar of the Lord. Then the Lord, by voice, he said throughout the entire night, seeing him, there were two, seeing the two prophets of the Lord look exactly alike. One is a little taller than the other, a little bit but exactly as they are, the two dreadful witnesses of Jehovah. And the Lord now with me up here, and he is on my right hand side by voice the entire night until morning, and showing the ministration, how the two dreadful witnesses are ministering at the altar. Then he kept saying, look, look, that is Elijah, that is Elijah, that is Elijah, the mighty prophet of the Lord. That is Elijah, the great prophet of Yahweh, the whole night until morning. And I even saw myself speaking on radio, reporting this on radio also. Tremendous time. Very, very shocking time, beloved people. Something must have shifted in heaven. Shouting, that is Elijah. And I could see the two of them ministering at the same time at the altar. And this went on the entire night until morning, audibly from my right hand side, above there. And we were watching the two of them ministering in a very mighty way, very ferocious way, at the altar, at the pulpit of the Lord. These are dreadful times, beloved people.
Nini kingine kilitendeka katika siku ambayo kuna jua kama hii?
Siku ya kupendeza nzuri kama hivi.
Siku ya kupendeza nzuri kama hii.
Beautiful day.
Siku ya kupendeza.
And the Lord now with me up here, and he is on my right hand side by voice. Then he kept saying, look, that is Elijah, that is Elijah, that is Elijah, the mighty prophet of the Lord. That is Elijah, the great prophet of Yahweh.
Going to be a visitation here.
Va a haber una visitación aquí.
I see him coming to visit you.
Yo veo a él viniendo a visitarte.
A blessed people.
El pueblo bendecido.
This is the time when the Lord is visiting the nations.
Ese es el tiempo cuando el Señor está visitando a las naciones.
How many are ready for the visitation of God?
¿Cuántos están listos para la visitación de Dios?
Let us worship the Lord then.
Vamos a adorar a Dios entonces.
There you go.
Ahí va. Again. Oh my God. Again. ¿Dónde viene? Mira. Mírame, ¿de dónde viene, mamá? Oh my God, it's lighting you.
My Lord, there is a very,
I don't know what's going on with the
my Lord, there is a very big visitation here. The glory of the Lord is pointing from
The glory of the Lord. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this.
sobre profeta
This is very powerful. Hallelujah. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this.
Mira esto, mira esto.
He's pointing at his prophet.
Está señalando sobre su profeta.
They have recorded the glory pointing at the two prophets here.
Ellos han recordado.
Well, beloved people, I see the Lord take me to a meeting. And in that meeting, I see the two tremendous prophets of the Lord ministering there. But as they ministered, they stood before the Lord of all the earth, and they each spoke to the Lord of all the earth, saying, Lord, you are so holy. Lord, you are so holy. You are so mighty and you are so holy. So they were speaking before the Lord of all the earth, standing right before the Lord. And then at that time, the Lord Jehovah, he showed me heaven open, and God the Father came out to them. He came out from heaven in his dreadful cloud, the cloud that navigated Israel, the cloud that met one of them on the mountain of the Lord, Mount Sinai. That tremendous God of Israel came out of heaven, and I see him coming to his two most fierce and deadly prophets. He came out of heaven, heaven opened, and the dreadful cloud of God that navigated Israel, cloud in the day, fire in the night, came all the way from heaven to them, to minister to them, to fellowship with them, to respond to them, to be with them, to empower them. At that time, the cloud spread out to many. I see it right now, spread out onto many, many, many people that were in that meeting. I see him spreading out on their heads, visiting the meeting as he came to visit his two most glorious and most transfigured prophets in the history of the Bible. And this I see happening in Nakuru. So this upcoming meeting of the Lord in Nakuru is going to be a shocker. It's going to tremble the earth. Blessed people, the Lord Jehovah Yahweh, he has spoken with me these past 2 days, and culminating into the conversation that took place this night. And the Lord has shown me the meeting that is coming up in Nakuru. And this past night, the Lord took me to the meeting in Nakuru, and from a distance he lifted me up above the universe into the heavens. Then he asked me to look at the meeting, and I saw the two tremendous prophets of Revelation 11 ministering there. But from heaven, Then the Lord showed his two servants the cloud of God the Father. He showed them God the Father coming to visit the meeting in Nakuru. And then from where we were, we could see the cloud coming. I thought I saw like a mushroom, more like that kind of mushroom, going up and then opening up there like a mushroom. But what shocked me most is that then at that moment, in less than a twinkle of an eye, higher than the speed of light by I don't know how many trillion fold, in a nick of time, in a flash, the two prophets were ready. We were standing at the altar in Nakuru, and then all of a sudden, we realized the cloud of God, God the Father was canopying. He covered the entire altar where his two mightiest prophets were standing, and then the other edge, it's amazing because the edge of it, there is so much sunlight on the other edge. But where he has come by the altar, he totally envelopes. You see a shadow that covers the altar of God in Nakuru, beloved people. But it was amazing because the edges, the end of the canopy was sunlight. So all around the field is sunlight, but here is canopy. How awesome, beloved people. The glory, the cloud of God is coming. I have seen the Lord coming to visit his two prophets of Revelation 11. And by voice, he separated them, and then he beamed light on one of them, and by voice from heaven I saw. He said, look at Moses, the friend of God. And he was walking towards the front, so we were seeing the face. And the other one was standing at the altar, looking a bit side like this. Then he said, look at Elijah, the dreadful prophet of the Lord. Beloved people, the Lord has asked me to prepare you for this tremendous visitation that is coming up in Nakuru. The Lord Jehovah, the God of heaven, he has now spoken, and he has decided, he completely decided and confirmed in heaven now that he is coming to visit the church, the entire body of Christ from Nakuru. I have seen the glory of God. I have seen the cloud of God overshadow the altar, and the other side is light. I see light with the periphery, but around the altar you can see the shadow. He comes and overshadows the altar, so you can see sunshine on the other side by the edges of the altar like this, but he comes to the altar, and then he overshadows the altar. And then in the second conversation again, he lifted me up into heaven, and then my shoulder touched the shoulder of God the Father, and then he showed me how he would depart from heaven. Heaven does split open, and then he departs from heaven and comes, and I see he narrows down like a pinpoint. He pinpoints a huge cloud, tremendous, probably bigger than the earth, coming from heaven. But when he comes now to Nakuru, approaching, he narrows down like a pin, as sharp as a pin, and then pinpoints and touches on his servant, the dreadful prophet of this hour, one that is promised in the book of Malachi, and with the other ones that are both on this major mission of God. So he comes to visit them at the altar in Nakuru. Well, beloved people, the Lord Jehovah has spoken with me. The Lord, the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, he spoke with me about this upcoming visitation coming to Nakuru. This is going to be a tremendous visitation. He lifted me up above the earth so I could see them meeting in Nakuru. I could also see the altar. And then when the cloud of God came, I see as if spiraling when he's about to touch the two prophets of the Lord, spirals and pinpoint touch them. So God the Father is relentless on this visitation that is coming up to Nakuru. He lifted me up above the earth and took me into the realm of heaven, and I was able to see how he comes out in a massive, huge cloud. I don't know what size, probably bigger than the earth when he's coming from above. But as he comes, narrow down to the meeting, it spirals, becomes a pinpoint sharp. I see as if spiraling, and then touches the two prophets of the Lord that he wants to touch. He wants to visit, he wants to set on them. I see the cloud. I see how the cloud from heaven where he lifted me into, a huge cloud that comes down and then narrows down and spirals a bit and then touches. I don't know whether it's the spiraling, it's because I'm seeing from above, but anyhow, the Lord visits the meeting in a very tremendous way. a meeting that is coming up. There is a meeting that is coming up, and there is such a side security I see there at that meeting. Because of the huge number of people at that meeting. And then at that meeting, then all of a sudden, the cloud of God came from heaven in a pillar, a white pillar of cloud of God, pointing all the way from heaven right on me, and in movement, so the cloud is alive. He is alive. God the Father himself descended and settled his cloud on me, and it was such a shocking thing. It was so shocking, and that is when, right in front of me, a bigger cloud, white cloud, stood. The pillar stood in front of me like this, in front of me in the meeting. A bigger pillar, the cloud that had settled on me, was facing me, but a little bit on the left. A very shocking visitation to behold in the land, in the church, and in the body of Christ. For a generation to behold it. The big cloud, the pillar that stood in front of me. Then I saw that inside the big pillar is he that speaks with you. Another one, the second prophet, is huge, but he's inside the cloud and slightly much bigger. What a shocking visitation in the house of the Lord, blessed people. I have seen the visitation of God the Father. He looked more like Central Park. It is very shocking that I have seen the two prophets of the Lord that stand before the Lord of all the earth, standing and ministering before the Lord of all the earth, and you could see that the huge cloud of God covered these prophets, and another pillar covered the other one. It's very shocking, very astounding. It's really, really perplexing, the perplexity of the visitations of God. This visitation is going to be in Central Park, because the place looks more like Central Park. To see the visitation of the two prophets of the book of Revelation, chapter 11. And I have seen Jehovah, the God of Israel, come and cover each one of them with his cloud, to identify them to this generation and to the universe and to the angels in heaven and all the heavenly hosts. I have seen the visitation of God the Father. He looked more like Central Park. It is very shocking that I have seen the two prophets of the Lord that stand before the Lord of all the earth, standing and ministering before the Lord of all the earth, and you could see that the huge cloud of God covered these prophets, and another pillar covered the other one. It's very shocking, very astounding. I have seen Jehovah, the God of Israel, come and cover each one of them with his cloud, to identify them to this generation and to the universe and to the angels in heaven and all the heavenly hosts.
Okay, let's somebody is good. The glory on my feet. Hallelujah. The glory is here, right? Okay. The glory is all over here, right? This is an incredible moment in the church, beloved people. Look at that now. So the glory of the Lord has covered this place.